concentrating the bets in the ones that I think in this last quarter, where I think the big bull market lies, those outperformers are the ones you really want to back. Now, I know a bunch of Bitcoin people hate it. It's not decentralized enough. I don't care. It's, are people using it? Yes, a lot more than most people realize.
What is your overall kind of overlook of the altcoin market right now?
So how I think about it is, when you start a bull market, you own Bitcoin, then you start overweighting ETH, and then what happens is everything that's riskier starts going up more. So these are things that are earlier in their adoption cycle, and then the super risky stuff like NFTs. So that's how bull markets always work. So what I did is I said, listen, I'm going to own some Bitcoin and some ETH, and I, over time, have moved more of my allocation to ETH. But I bought a basket of stuff. I said, I don't know whether Polkadot, Cardano, Solana, whatever's going to outperform. So I just did a basket equally weighted. And then I've been watching it. And so it's done really well. I put it on the beginning of the year. It's up, I don't know, 150% or so. And now I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to start concentrating the bets in the ones that I think in this last quarter, where I think the big bull market lies, those outperformers are the ones you really want to back. So that's kind of how I've been thinking about it. I did the idiot's portfolio first, which is like, I don't know, because it's hard to know it's hard to know. So that was the idiot's way. Then I start looking at seeing, okay, what's getting adoption?
So is there not like a little buyer, do you think people could be in for buyer's remorse, really? I mean, because certainly, like, you probably wish you had bought Ethereum in 2017 or, 2016. Isn't actually not having a big ecosystem yet and still having the hype and excitement for Cardano, don't you think that could actually be a good thing?
Which is why I own it. I it's exactly that reason. Is I own it because there's a lot of investors in it, and if the ecosystem builds out, it's going to do incredibly well. And as you say, maybe it rallies into that, as everyone knows smart contracts is the issue. So that's everybody knows. So therefore, when smart contracts come out, it's kind of like, okay, well, that's what we've been waiting for. We know it's coming. It's like the ETH 2.0. We know it's coming. There's too many smart people working on it for it not to happen. So I agree. I think you're right. It probably goes up significantly into that event.
What is your thought about Cardano from a functional standpoint and also a price standpoint?
So, we've had Charles Hoskinson a few times on Real Vision. I like the project. I think it's very interesting. We really need to see more network adoption. So it's early stage for me still. So, the price is going up, it's doing well. There's a big community behind it. So that gives you one side of the network. We need to see more use cases outside of the Ethiopia case that's being talked about a lot. So, I own some, and I'm just waiting to see, really, is it going to start getting a lot of traction, people building stuff on it? I know people are waiting for the smart contract side. So, maybe it's not the biggest outperformer in this cycle. But, if it survives this cycle and continues to get adoption, it'll probably do very well in the next cycle. Unfortunately, I think we totally agree with each other. XRP is a great risk reward, right? The lawsuit, we've seen every lawsuit, every single one has been a fine.
Everyone.
A slap on the wrist, because everybody's actually cleared up after the event anyway. And these events were a while ago, BitMEX, that's happening. We're going to see all of this. So I think it's going to be a slap on the wrist, that it could have looked like a security. There'll be no admission of guilt on either side. There'll be a payment of a fine, and then XRP is free to run. What's interesting about XRP is there is quite a lot of use cases. Now, I know a bunch of Bitcoin people hate it. It's not decentralized enough. I don't care. It's, are people using it? Yes, a lot more than most people realize. And what's amazing about this setup is you can't buy us on any of the exchanges. And it's not in the Bitwise ETF. The Bitwise ETF is now $1 billion. The Bitwise index is, the top 10 index is $1 billion. So the moment XRP is freed, they have to buy a few $100 million of it. as everybody else can, because the exchanges will have it back. So you're setting up for a hell of a nice run if this clears up. Worst case, it doesn't. Worst case is, let's say 50% downside. Best case is 10x from here. So I'll take a 50-to-1 risk reward for the next 3 to 6 months. Remember, the Coinbase IPO, remember, buy the rumor, sell the fact, was the exact high of Bitcoin to the day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really was.
Which is why I think ETH 2.0 will be to the day.
Yeah.
And maybe a Ripple one will be the same. It's how markets work. Solana, I think, is I wrote an article about this weekend. I've been looking at it, wasn't sure what to do with it. And then I think it's the ETH of this cycle.
Wow.
Remember the ETH of the last, ETH was the one that became the big new thing. I think it's this, because the pedigree of all the people involved in it, the speed of adoption is ridiculous. I mean, it's growing faster than ETH did at that point in the cycle. The number of application, the ecosystem it's like, somebody just sent me a chart of the ecosystem. There's like 300 people already working with Solana. It's like, okay, this is real. And this is happening at a speed none of us can get our heads around. It's kind of like everybody wanted Cardano to happen. Is that actually happening in Solana right now? As you say, doesn't mean Cardano doesn't over time, but Solana looks like it's going to win this, this cycle. As being the standout coin that becomes a major. It's great. They're disrupting the financial system, but I've been in the finance system for 30 years, so I don't really want to invest in another new finance system. So really what I've got interested in is community tokens. That I think is going to be the big one. And I don't think it's going to be the big one for this cycle. Mm-hmm. I think it's going to be the thing, look back in 5 years' time and go, oh my God, there was zero chance you will not tokenize your community. There's zero chance Real Vision will not tokenize. There's zero chance Disney will not tokenize its franchises, and maybe Disney itself. There's Facebook is already tokenizing via VN. So right now there's only 1 or 2 platforms to buy, and one of them is Rally. The other one is Chili's, which is tokenizing soccer clubs and sports teams. So there's not actually much there. So if you want to express your view, those are the platforms. We'll get more over time as other people. Flow is probably another one. The Dapper Labs product, Flow. So that's where I really think you can find bargains. I mean, Rally's $150 million. If communities really start going, some of these communities are, what's the community of Disney worth? I mean,
insane to think about.
Maybe $100 billion. What's Rally worth then? 150 million.
Do the math.
So some of this will be straight on different protocols. Some of them will be on this. So those are my kind of smaller tips on the side.